Hello. Hi, everybody. Good morning. I would like to start my presentation about moving content in Drupal 8. This is one of my favorite subjects. I can talk about it forever. So I will try to make my presentation reasonably short and fit it within allocated 30 minutes so we have time for discussion. I did exactly the same presentation several times already, and I'm very grateful to all the people who liked it, joined the project, and made this story on how to build a very powerful module within 9 months with zero budget and community inspiration. I'm a web developer, and I like Lewis Carroll, and I want to say thank you to MidCamp for providing this wonderful template that I would like to use for this presentation. I'm going to talk about tools that are available today. There's a huge change from what I presented a year ago, and I specifically want to concentrate on what Feeds Migrate module is doing, how it is combining best of Feeds module and Migrate, and why we wanted to have this module. This demo uses DevTools. It definitely will break, so be prepared. Before we dive into migrations itself, I want to take a bird's eye view and set the context for this discussion. Website's mission is to support your organization. Content moves, websites change. Things are generated inside and outside of organization, and it's one of the core functionalities of the website to integrate things that come externally, and also to have websites move websites from one version to another. This defines what content you are moving on the site, again, externally and internally, different formats and different type of information. It can be both documents, or text. And you have one-time migrations, and you have regular imports that you need to support all the time. And of course, we need it by Monday. It's Saturday, almost noon, so I'm sure it will be ready. So first, I want to review what's available now and whether it works or not. Yes, one-click upgrade from existing site works. We have Feeds module that allow you to do periodic migrations very well. And there is Migrate Suite that allows you to do migrations from databases and other sources. And of course, you can always write a custom script, and any developer, they'll say, oh, you know, I'll migrate this site for you real quickly and very efficiently. I'll just write custom scripts. The problem is you have to write them every time, so it's not scalable whatsoever. So we have defining two types of migration. One is migration, which is like we have existing data, we need to process it, and we need to put it into destination container that is pre-configured. And this works well when we have old site and we move stuff to the new site. We have imports, which is kind of going opposite direction. We have existing website with predefined containers, and then we have content that's coming externally, and we need to package it somehow, process, and then so we have predefined destination container, and then external source need to be pre-configured so we can fit it into what we have. This is something that we use a lot everywhere, and some examples at Stanford would be integration with Stanford profiles, integrations with events calendar, and integrations with courses. Three major things that Stanford sites can pull from the central source and display on their websites. This demo I've done many times already. This is something that was awesome in Drupal 8 and didn't exist in previous versions of Drupal, is when you click on this upgrade button and you click and then you enter your database credentials, and this is designed really for a one-time migration. So while this thing is working, I'm gonna talk about it. The beauty of this thing is that it will automatically create for you all old content types. It will export data, import data in the new Drupal 8. When we were doing migration 6 to 7, this is where lots of effort, developers' effort would go. Now we don't have to deal with this. We click, it's done. You have to read the manual. It's still working, so you need to make sure that all the modules that you need on the new Drupal 8 side are there and they're enabled. Otherwise, Drupal will not find migration path. And it is a one-time thing, because once you migrate it, even if you do what is called now incremental migration, it will not make change, like it just does new content will be imported, but if you change something, it will not go and look at the old database and pull in new content. So this is where you would enter information, and then you will wait for about, depending on the size of your website, I would say between 20 minutes and 30 minutes. You have all the things done, and we're not going to look at it today. Great things about this content: your NIDs are preserved, your URLs are preserved, menus can be preserved, site configuration is preserved. And this will work great if you have very good, very clean, well-defined Drupal 6 site, and you just click one button, it's there. You just need to deal with theming. By the way, it doesn't migrate views at this point. I didn't check on the views migration status. Maybe it's working, maybe it's not. There's lots of things in development. It has lots of limitations. Display doesn't migrate usually. Plain text format doesn't exist in Drupal 8. So if you had anything in plain HTML, you have to deal with format conversion. So you need to write some migrate plugins, which you probably don't want to do. The great news is that field collections migration to paragraphs is almost ready. It has been tested at Meetcamp. This patch actually works. There are some peculiarities with different versions of PHP and Drupal, but it is actually ready. It was one of the very big showstoppers for migrations before. So it's not committed into paragraphs module, but it is working for developers. Okay, so that's one-click migration. Then we have our wonderful feeds module, which now works in Drupal 8. Last year was lots of development has been done by lots of people. So you add feed type. This is something that comes out of the box when you install feeds module. There's only CSV. There's no XML or JSON at this point. You can get CSV and JSON through extensible parsers module, but there are lots of things that are in development. While lots of these things are available already in core, but again, only to developers or API calls. So you can define feed type very similar to what you would be doing from what you would be doing in Drupal 7. You say import my articles, article XML import test demo. You can set all kind of settings here, update or create new. There is some authentication in feeds. And this is the heart of feeds module. You can add mapping, and you can map your source to your destination. And this is what all of us use many times, so I'm not gonna go through this in detail, but it works. The title, actually, this is what I want to put in there. And here's where you define unique, because unique is critical field when you're doing regular migrations. You don't want regular imports. You don't want things to be written there again and again. And then once you defined and mapped your fields. You can add the feed. You can say, okay, this is my file that I want to import. You click save and import, and you run your import, and you have all your news. And the reason why we don't have new articles, because I already imported them before we had the demo. So this is great, but I can't import XML and I can't import JSON right now. So I can do a migration. I can write a migration with migrate. And when I'm running it, I will get all these migrations for every single detail, except that I don't want to deal with Drush and write custom plugins all the time. It was so great and wonderful to do all this mapping through UI, and then even allow my content editors to once in a while select from which file they want to upload their news articles. So I said I really want to have it in Drupal 8. And if we have great UI in feeds and all the power of migrate is now in core, maybe it's time to connect them. And this is how this journey started. So in core, we have all the parsers, we have processors, and UI for migrate is very limited, to say the least. Feeds has great UI, but right now, and we started this project 2 years ago at DrupalCon in Baltimore. Developer, so maintainer of feeds, talked to maintainer of migrate and said, yeah, this is a great idea, but we're all very busy. Yep, we are. But if this model would exist, it would save everyone so much time and effort that people got excited and said, let's try, maybe it will work. So what we did very clearly identified what we're pulling from each source and what is a difference between process in feeds and in migrate. I would like to thank everyone who jumped on this project very early and contributed code, and then we wrote code and then did it. And next time I'll do this presentation, it will be called How to Build a Very Popular Module in 9 months with zero budget and inspiration from open source community. So today I'd like to introduce, for those who haven't seen this link, project. The URL is Feeds Migrate. Hopefully it will open someday. This is information for developers about the module. So currently we have 2 repos. Developers, any developers in the room, can you raise your hands? Great. So this is information about the repo where you can send pull request. Here it is. This is where is the most active development of the module is happening. The pull requests are coming in. They are being reviewed usually within 1 week and then pushed back to Drupal.org. So when people want to test from or install it with Drush, it's there as well. We have weekly meetups on Slack because people who work on this project. One is in Amsterdam, Seattle, Chicago. So this is like a very normal open source community. So we do it Thursdays at 11 o'clock California time. So this is why everyone who's participating now can join, including people who work on this in New Zealand and Australia. One of the biggest challenges, and I want to talk to developers about the challenges that we were overcoming, is that migrate that is in core starts with a data source. Feeds do not start with a data source. So we had to rewrite the module to be able to define migrations that has no source and define the source at the time when we're actually creating actual importer. Okay, I'm going to attempt to do the demo. I hope that it will work, but since I did waiver and disclaimer, if it doesn't work, we'll work with screens. So we are working in the standard migration structure. We're not adding anything at this point. So we go to migrations, we create migration group because migrations need to belong to the group. We add migration, new XML import. There is group, it can be either default or the other one. This is where we can define sources, whatever we want. We're gonna stick for now for URL. You can decide whether you want to do from file and HTTP, this part works. This is the core part of the demo. You can define here whatever you want, right? For those who code migrate, you know what other sources are available. So we're gonna do XML, and I know that in my file, this is how it is defined. It is 1/ instead of 2 that was in D7. This minor detail cost me lots of time to try to figure it out and freaked out. Developer said it works, but it didn't work for me. It's like, what's going on? And here you can define any plugin so that you want. For those who work with Migrate, you can see the structure that's sitting behind it, right? So, and then we click save. And now I can do the mapping. This is the part that does not exist in Migrate model. And this is the key element that brings Feeds and Migrate together. Because now you can create migration from UI. It is compatible with existing migration. Some things don't work, but that's a demo. So I can map whatever I need to map to source to my source. I can define whether it's unique or not. And this is the part where we need most of work, and developers who are working on this are working on it right now. Okay? We can save it. And then now I have my mapper defined. I have all this stuff and mapping defined via UI. If I go to list of migrations, which are sitting in here in this group, I can see them all, and they're compatible with Migrate structure. And then I can now add importer, which is like actual, similar to Feeds. I can say, I would like to new articles. I would like to do, say this one. These are all the migrations that you defined, and whether you define them through Migrate code or through UI, it doesn't matter, they all will show up. If you had migrations defined with Migrate Plus or any other tools, they will still be here. You decide where you're getting it from. I am going to upload my file. Hopefully it will show me what I need. And then I define data parser, then I save it. It should get upset with me because it's not what I asked it, but I have preset migration that has correct file. No, it doesn't. And then if I run it, it will show me all the articles that are imported. So I want to go through some screenshot and see what is still in work in progress. Parsers are partially done. Authentication is one of the things that has not been started yet for the UI. And this is where we were like, we have to have it. We can edit migration. We can map migration. The vision was that eventually it will work like web form, where when you're adding new things with web form, you're doing it with Ajax. So it was built structurally, so you can bring this Ajax on later. There are a couple of things on the wish list where, for example, if you have data source and you want preloaded, it will populate all your fields with, you know, with the names of the source eventually someday. Most of the work right now is going into process plugins. And this is where we are right now. This is the demo that I did. There's a bunch of open issues. And this is where I want to concentrate on this is how we are working on it. We worked directly with Lucas Haddon, who is a maintainer of Migrate Plus and Migrate Tools, because this is work talking to Migrate Plus and Migrate Tools, and we need any changes. We can always send it for his review immediately. We have documented UI, we have documented requirements, and we have very clear roadmap, so we know what we're looking for. So next presentation is going to be in San Francisco in June. I hope that we will be able to do some more work internally, and we plan to do another presentation in Seattle, but that has not been defined yet. So this is this is the pitch. Contribute to Drupal. Please provide your feedback, and here we're gonna stop for a minute. Questions, discussion. So the site was originally designed, the motivation for this module was so we will be able to connect to CAP. Because Drupal 8 does not, like CAP provides JSON format. And this is one of the most popular tasks that we do at Stanford. We need to pull people's profiles into the website, and we didn't have it for Drupal 8. And that was motivation behind this module.
We should talk, because I've done some tweaks to Migrate Plus and Migrate to some plugins to pull that into the market version. But it's all very, sort of handbuilt Migrate integration. So really glad to see how what the output is from the community.
I'd be happy to go through the code in details, and definitely not today, and point at how things work, why they're configured in a particular way, because we had to do 2 or 3 reviews of the original plan to accommodate existing structure for Migrate.
Does this module handle report management or updates of existing codes that have already been migrated?
Yes, that was one of 3 major goals, is that it will update existing content. So it goes, checks whether this content has been changed or not, and it will bring new changes into new site. And I think that there are some additional tools for tracking that. I didn't work with them yet. So the hope was that, like with your modules that were very Stanford specific, you can use some, like this module will be like a core or foundation. And so anything that needs to be done to handle general JSON import or general XML import, that would work for anyone who is doing imports, whether it's university or is it nonprofit or is it a commercial, will be in there. And then if there's something Stanford specific or UC specific, then this will be like much smaller portion that will be developed just to accommodate that particular importer or structure. But the big framework for imports will be there. That was the goal of this project. I don't think it is really ready for production right now, but if I would have an opportunity to talk to a university and say, this is the contribution that we would love to have from your developers, I would say, well, let me go back to here. So there are a couple of things that I can show in the structure, and I think Zoom stopped sharing. Something happened. Because it's not showing what I'd like it to show. Maybe it's my computer. So right now, for example, we can import basic stuff, title, authored by, but processor plugins are not working. I can email very specific technical description and say, if we would have this, then we can do this. Also, JSON import is not defined in detail because it's more complicated than XML. XML has like easier defined structure. JSON can be very complex, so putting in UI so that you can define JSON within UI is more complicated. So these are two pieces that are missing the most. There's also authentication piece, and I was wondering if anyone in this room is interested in doing something with authentication. Because some people in this room have lots of expertise on authentication specifically. Like for a big model is not a priority. Priority is processor plugins and JSON UI.
So you're talking about
Yes, because right now that piece is not built at all. I think, I'm pretty sure that there is some hook in, I'm sure that migration define authentication. Like migrate itself allows authentication. So the reason why we wanted to build it on top of migrate, because all the code and all the services and all APIs, they're already in there. So what we need is we need to be able to expose it in some way similar to what CAP is doing, where you can enter your ID and your authentication token, and then you're in.
I have a time understanding why you need what's the use of the feeds importer as well as setting up a migration with mapping. So you do a migration with, you use the UI to do the mapping, and then you show like setting up a feeds import.
This is a very good question. So the question is for recording, why do we have two steps? First step is defining migration, where we're doing mapping. And the second step is adding importer or a feed. The reason for that is that you might want to have same type of migration with very different sources. And our use case is that often content managers will define what is the source. Like for example, if they're doing update of, say, a list of their degrees requirements, right? It doesn't come from central source, but there's an office that will say, okay, this is list of degrees that we have this year, and this is how there are changes, like there's different dates for applications or something like this. They will give it to us in the file format, and we need to upload. This is really content. This is what we normally would do through feeds.
You don't need you wouldn't necessarily need the feeds importer every time.
Right. So we're doing feed.
For that use case.
Yeah. So feeds importer or migration is similar to the content type that is defined by Drupal developer or site builder. Importer or actual feed is similar to the node, where you say, okay, this particular node has this content. Does that make sense? Did I answer the question? Okay. And so often when we work with XML, this is where we would say, like, for example, when we're building faculty profiles for their individual pages, they have a list of courses in the central course repository. And we have XML feed where we can pull all the courses for this particular professor or for this particular department. And for departments, it's a little bit more like generic because departments are usually managed by web services. It's a larger installation, but professors change things reasonably often. And so we are building new profile for a new professor, and we say, please give us all the courses by this professor in XML format. We can very easily do it in Drupal 7, but we can't do it right now in Drupal 8. And we can do it in CSV format, but not in XML format. And my thinking was, we can either extend feeds and have extensible parser and feeds and build all the processor, and we'll build additional tamper plugins, because sometimes I would want to combine year and, like if XML say gives me date and year separately, and I want to combine them, I need to have a processors, and they are already in core. So we're building two parallel structures instead of putting them together and taking this great UI. It is time-consuming project, and it requires a lot of people, you know, a lot of man hours and lots of expertise to build this. But the end result is so beneficial to everyone that this is all about open source. And I'm sorry, I think something happened with Zoom because I can't restore projector. Sorry. Sorry? Let me try to. It's not very cooperative today. Nope, not happy. So this is, I can't even. Okay, we'll just stay with the voice recording and this beautiful title. Regular, because this is for one-time imports. There are a number of tools that exist with Drupal 8 for one-time import is reasonably sufficient. If I need to do one-time import, worst case scenario, I can convert it to CSV somehow, I can build some combinations, I'll figure it out. But when I need to have regular imports for multiple sites, especially when owners of the site once in a while say, oh, we want to adjust, we want to pull news from the different feed. Like the people who provide the source changed their URL. It used to be, I don't know what, woods.stanford.edu/news, and now it's woods.stanford.edu/recent news. They should be able, they are able to do it right now with Drupal 7 themselves. Right now they can't do it, they need to go back to developer who goes into migrate and makes this one change and then pushes it back into code. And this is a very long operation. The overhead of this operation makes it somewhat prohibitive. Because you need to update lots of things. And if you can't do it through UI, you have to do the full cycle with code. Any questions from developers? Any use cases that somebody could see with their projects?
How would you recommend importing from WordPress? We cover the Drupal.
So there's lots of tools to move things between WordPress and Drupal. We usually use, there's a wonderful module that we usually use called import all and export all that allows you to export all content from WordPress, specify fields, define whatever you want to do. So you end up again with XML. In Drupal, either 7 or 6, there was WordPress import module that was specialized set up for WordPress, but it doesn't give you fields. We just recently moved stuff from WordPress there was a specialized plugin called Publications, where they defined their fields in whatever way they wanted. So we exported it into XML that we can then easily plug into Drupal, which goes back into XML import. So if we have XML import, we can have WordPress content coming in very nicely with any custom modifications that WordPress had. Does it answer the question? Do you want to be more specific? Okay. Some people are moving from Drupal to WordPress for good reasons. Some people are moving from WordPress to Drupal for good reasons. And there's like lots of different tools for migrations, and people are not always aware of them. Okay. All right, well, thank you very much for coming on Saturday to the session, and I hope that we think that we're going to keep working on this module. The more people can start testing it and tie it to their use cases, the more we hope you will find where you can contribute smaller chunks. And I'm very happy that we got that far in this journey, because when we started, there was no really, we were struggling with architecture and how to put together foundation for this module. Now that we have like smaller chunks, like let's look at temper processors, let's look at this particular plugin, let's look at this particular import type or source type, I think it hopefully will be easier to split work between different groups. That's my hope. Okay, thank you very much. I don't know how. Maybe now okay. Thank you everyone for coming.